Alright, here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, the other day I wrote a very, very long joke. Well, I actually typed it, but it doesn't really matter. That takes about like 15 minutes to get to the punchline. And this is the audio version of it. It's like Audible. It's not sponsored. And if you don't want to hear like me saying it, and you just want to read it for yourself, I'm leaving a link of a text file in the description. So if you want to read it to yourself, you can. Just click the link, alright? But this is the audio version if you're too lazy to read and you want to just listen, you know? Just do this in one take because it's so long. I don't need to waste a billion hours of my life to keep recording it. If I stutter, I'm sorry. I'll try my best to do a good narrating tone, you know? Alright. Make sure to subscribe. Okay. Okay, here it goes. Here goes nothing. There once was a man named Joseph Williams, born on March 24th. His birthday felt more than just a birthday. It was a very special day to him ever since he was born. When born, the doctor made a typo when making the birth certificate and accidentally put his birthday as March 25th, when in reality, every other document of him was marked on the 24th of March. Though he was actually born on the 24th, many of his friends and even some family members believed he was born on the 25th. Due to the lack of communication his unstable family had, most family members don't know the actual date of his birth. But only a few of his family members actually did, such as his mom, dad, and sister. His brother, grandparents, and every single one of his close friends have always thought he was born on the 25th. A major reason that most people believed he was born a day after his actual date of birth was because of the hospital he went to was the most popular hospital in the country. Labeled as the most trustworthy hospital in the country, everybody had trust in this building. Unfortunately, Joseph came across some of the very rare occasions of a mistake happening in the building. Since everybody would rather trust a popular hospital than an unstable family, this led to common belief of the wrong assumption of his birth date. Joseph struggled with this for most of his life. Since the age of 11, Joseph would be sad during his birthday because a very small amount of people came to celebrate this special day just because of the typo. He would always have to wait an extra day for everybody to celebrate it, and he didn't feel the excitement anymore, and then became bored of his own birthday. Joseph never thought of a solution to his own big personal problem in his life. He talked to many friends about this and even some family members, but most of them claimed he was crazy, or that he was messing with them. With all hope lost for now, he gave up and pretended his birthday was the 25th of March. When Joseph got in the 7th grade, he was put in a health class. This health class teaches a lot about the human body, a lot about diseases, including the sexual transmitted diseases, and childbirth. The childbirth unit of learning always interested Joseph because of his lifelong problem of the wrong date of his birthday. Though Joseph wasn't doing the best at school, his highest grade point peaked in the health classes, mostly during the childbirth unit. Keeping this interest for many years, Joseph did much research on childbirth and birthdays, and he got to know a lot about these things so he could argue with his friends and family about his real birthday. Yet his friends and family still claimed he was speaking nonsense. Joseph still had hope in the convincing people about his real birthday, instead of the mistaken, one day off birthday. A couple years later, an adventure into high school, Joseph got very interested into science and quantum physics and all that advanced stuff. This went deep into his head, and thought to himself, what if there was a way I could go back in time just to correct that typo and redo my whole life from there? This went far into his head. So he decided to take many math classes, engineering classes, and science classes, etc. All just so he could finally fix that one typo that changed his whole life. By the time Joseph turned 22, he got a very high-paying job working for NASA and other parts of the government. With very high intelligence on how these things worked, Joseph was planning on inventing a time machine just to go back in time and fix his birthday once and for all. Months after months go on into a constant trial and error, mistake after mistake, all for his finalized masterpiece. It took millions and millions and after millions of dollars to construct this huge machine for himself, for his own personal need. This wire goes here, this bolt goes here, he says to himself while in confusion during the building of this very advanced time machine. After many months, lots of money, and lots of stress, the machine was finally built. The wonderful time machine that will change his entire life, and even his entire birth. Obviously, it needed some testing, because he wasn't so sure if this machine was safe or not. He put ads in papers all around the city, hoping for someone to risk his life, or their life, for this brand new invention that's never been used before. One brave young man was brave enough to be the one-time tester for the time machine. His prize, if he survived, was $100,000 in American currency. About a week later, the machine and the man were both ready for the experiment. The man got dressed in his experimental clothes and signed a contract, meaning, if he died doing this testing, his family couldn't sue NASA, because he consented to it. The man stepped into the machine, prayed to the Lords, hoping he wouldn't die. Joseph said, "You are a brave young man, and I thank you for doing this." Joseph closed the door and dated the time machine to bring him back to April 13th, 1988, when that young man was born, and where that young man was born. Related to the experiment that Joseph was doing, he thought this would be a great idea. As the door shut, the man's face was filled with terror and regret, but it was too late to stop now. The door finally shut, and Joseph pressed the button to teleport him back to his own birthday. A huge flash went off, and smoke leaked from the cracks of the door. The door opened, and the man was gone. According to Joseph's study, he would be back within a minute, due to the distortion of time from teleporting. But no harm would happen with his age at all. Joseph waited a minute. Nervous he wouldn't come back. A big flash banged from the door once again, and the man actually did come back, but he was shocked. Joseph first thought that the time machine mentally and maybe physically messed him up. Joseph asked him to speak, making sure he was okay. The man uttered, "I just saw my own childbirth. I'm not sure if I'm disturbed or excited." Right as the man said that, Joseph bursted out in laughing. With joy in his voice, he said, "My God, it works! My time machine works!" His eyes started to tear up as he praised his own invention. NASA signed a large $100,000 check to the man, who was also happy to go to the experiment that Joseph conducted. Later in the day, a former member of NASA gave him a ride home, and took him away from the annoying paparazzi. Now that Joseph knew his time machine worked, he started to plan a time and a date he could use it for himself, and change his whole life. Later that night, Joseph was deprived of sleep because how excited he was. Every time he closed his eyes, he got anxious to use his own amazing machine. That night, Joseph only got 3 hours of sleep, but his adrenaline was so high, he wasn't even tired. He was ready to start planning a time and date to be put in the history books. As the day went on, he came to a conclusion on when he would use his time-traveling machine. He wrote on a calendar, "Tomorrow at 5 p.m. He set down his pen and let the day go on until it was time to sleep once again. This time, he took a pill to help him sleep that night, just so he'd get to changing history as soon as his mind thought time went by. During that exciting day, he woke up, ate breakfast, took a shower, and anxiously waited for the clock to hit 5 p.m. When it did, he told everybody it was time. It was time to change his birth date, once and for all. He was going to fix the typo from saying the 25th to the 24th, as it should be. It hit 5 p.m., and he was already dressed and wrote his plan on how he was going to sneak onto the computer and change the typo. Hours after he was born, he would teleport right whenever and wherever the doctor left his computer and change the typo without anyone seeing, and reverse back into time, into present day. In his head, it was the most perfect plan out of all the other plans people thought of for him. He mostly trusted himself, thus making the decision to go with his own master plan. Joseph stepped forward, stepped into the machine, and then did prayers like the young man from earlier did. He took a deep breath and told the crew to close the doors, because he was ready to change his life. The door shut, and he heard a beep from one of the crew members pressing the activate button. He started shaking, and he felt sick as the machine was activating. The machine got very loud, and it was very windy from the inside. Then a flash blinded him for about 10 seconds. Whenever he regained his vision, he was at the hospital in which he was born in. He saw the doctor typing on the computer and physically saw him make the typo that changed his whole life. He quietly hid under the desk that was near the computer, praying not to get caught. As he heard the footsteps of the doctor leaving the room and shutting the door, he shot up, cracked his knuckles, pressed backspace a couple times, and typed in March 24th, 1997, the actual date of his birth, and quickly hid back under the desk to wait for the doctor to print out the birth certificate. He heard the click of a mouse a couple times and heard a printer nearby printing the actual, factually correct birth certificate. He let out a huge sigh and whispered to himself, "Mission accomplished. I did it. I was officially born on the 24th of March. No more arguing, no more late birthdays, and being sad because of this." He looked down at the remote that he brought with him, that would teleport back in the present day, back to the machine. He let out another sigh and said to himself, "Here we go." He pressed the button with a smile, but all of a sudden, the remote started shaking and heating up in his own hand. It got so hot that he dropped the remote right on the floor. When the remote hit the floor, many of the buttons fell off because of the impact. The drop didn't make the situation any better. When he dropped it, the remote started beeping very loud. The doctor heard it and yelled, "Who's there?" Joseph got really scared and decided to stay silent for his own safety. The doctor traced where the beeping was coming from and pulled up the tablecloth and saw Joseph. The doctor screamed and yelled, "Get out! What are you doing here?" Joseph didn't have words. The doctor reached for his shirt, about to pull him out, and then the remote exploded, and Joseph got blinded once again. All he could see was his body in first person with light all around him. His hands and feet started getting smaller. He was getting shorter. He was turning back into a baby, the newborn version of him. Some adult things still stuck to him when he morphed into a baby. His voice didn't change, and he still had a slightly deep voice. And he still had all of his knowledge. He turned back into a mastermind newborn, right into his mother's hands. Not knowing what to do, he yelled, "Mom!" even though he was an hour-old newborn. The mother screamed in confusion, wondering how her new baby could talk, and how the baby's voice was wildly deep for a newborn. The mom thought she was losing her mind until she saw the nurse beside her staring at her with a very blank expression, showing that she saw and heard the same exact thing as the mother. This news spread very quickly. All the doctors in the building were freaking out and confused how this new child was already talking, with a very deep voice and with the knowledge of a 20-year-old man. Most reporters came to the family, mostly to the mother, asking non-stop questions. These questions included like, what did the baby say? Did the government do this? And mostly of all, is this a publicity stunt? Though the mother didn't know the first two, she still tried her best to answer them. Joseph finally pieced together on what was going on. It's a very confusing but scientific reason. Whenever he pressed the remote, it malfunctioned and got mixed up with two of the same exact person, Joseph as a newborn and Joseph as an adult, in the same world at the same time. The remote didn't know which one to bring back in the present day, and out of the 50-50 chance, it unfortunately picked the baby to bring back in the present day, and the remote destroyed itself in confusion. The baby is back in 2019 in the time machine. Joseph was now worried that all of his coworkers are freaking out because he'll never become in the back present day. All they got was a clueless baby that will grow up and be very confused. But the more Joseph thought about it, he was happy. He could restart his whole life with all of the knowledge, with the fame of his newborn talent, and use it to his own advantage. Plus, he accomplished the thing he was trying to do for almost a decade, officially change the date of his birth to the 24th of March. Joseph was happy with his decision. He would be the smartest person in existence and use it to his own advantage to get a gigantic head start in life, and maybe even live longer, and find new things to invent, and to change the world. As the mother went home, she put super genius baby Joseph in his crib. The mother said, "Your birth certificate is coming on the 26th of March, which is in 2 days. I can't wait." Joseph was equally as excited for the day he gets the birth certificate he was dreaming of. A day later, the day before he is officially announced he was born on the 24th, Joseph got ready himself because his mind was capable of it. He held the mind of a 20-year-old man and a 1.5-day-old baby. He went to sleep that night very happy to do an interview as a baby to adult reporters. A day later, on March 26th, not March 24th, his real birthday, not March 25th, his supposed birthday by a lot of people, March 26th, 2 days after his real birthday, and 1 day after his mistaken birthday. When Joseph was 2 days old, he did the interview. The adults asked many questions like, did he have a past life? Or, what do you plan on doing in the future? He answered all those. But one question caught his attention. It was a very dumb question. Some lady asked, "Are you aware that you're only 48 hours old and doing an interview with adults?" Joseph answered with, "Well, duh. That's dumb and obvious question. Miss, I wasn't born yesterday."